It's a lie!
Little problem pretty much involved this bit of pipe, and looking along it, it's just lost too much weight.
The original diesel day tank was on its last legs, so another job to tackle was to fabricate a new one from fiberglass and a product called Thermalite. Prior to measuring up, I laid up a sheet of Thermalite with epoxy resin and one sheet of double bias fiberglass for strength. Layup lines were easy to score in with a scriber.
So here we go, we've got our Thermalite. I've covered it with double bias glass before. You saw us lay it out, and I cut it with a wafer disc on a grinder. Really great thing to use, really accurate, nice straight cuts. Alright, so just a dab will do. So we're not actually, this glue is not lending any strength to this, alright? Well, it must lend some, but we're not relying on the glue to hold this together. It's purely just tacking it together.
Well, you are relying on it to hold it together until you fiberglass it.
Yeah, well come on now, not in long term. What do you want to pick a fight with me, do you? But the other thing is when this is all glassed in place, it's still open, isn't it? Fuel can slosh out, so we're going to put a top on it. For something to glass onto, I'm going to just have to put these little ledges in here as well. So I can just put my steel ruler across there, find where they need to be, and I'll put them on like that.
Yep.
And that means when it comes time to put the lid on, I'll be able to just smear a bunch of glue on there, on these top edges, and push it down, let it set, and then we can glass and really go to town, and that'll be on both sides. I've gone and scavenged a bit of cardboard, cut this nice rounded shape. So I'm going to squeeze the epoxy filler in, and I'll use that to shape it. This is epoxy with microfiber in it, not Q-cells. Q-cells is for fairing.
Yeah, you're not fairing, you want strength.
Yeah, so this is we're doing some gluing, but this is only a small amount what I've got here.
Is it going to be enough?
Probably not, but I want to get an idea of how much I'm going to need. So this is not a bad trick for dispensing epoxy resin, is it? And need
a lot more.
Once the glue had set, it was time to stick on the top, ready for fiberglassing.
As part of our upgrade for our fuel system, I'm putting in, at the moment it's got a hand pump and it goes directly from our underfloor tank and up into the top tank and then down through a Raycor filter, secondary filtering into our engine. But the problem is when you run fuel through a pump and then well, into the top tank, but then it goes down into the filter. Because it's already gone through the pump, the fuel and the water sort of mix. They semi-emulsify, and they can overcome a filter to some degree. That Raycor's been pretty good. What you really want is a pump to be sucking fuel through a filter. Okay, you don't want to go from fuel tank, pump, filter, end result. You want to go from the tank through a filter by suction, through the pump, and then wherever it's going to go. And by sucking through a filter, the water and the fuel just sort of travel. They're still semi-separate, and a separation filter, like what I have here, can work. All right. So the existing Raycor, we're going to use that as our first line defence. It's going to be pulled through that, put into our day tank that I'm making at the moment, and then after that, when it's off to the engine, or indeed when it goes back to the tank, because I'm going to set it up with the piping so I can polish either what's in the day tank, and when I say I polish, I mean it goes through this filter, back through the other filter, through the pump and back again, or I can pull it out of the underfloor storage and run it through the filter and then back again, just by arranging some valves and so on. And that's called polishing your fuel, just being able to run it through a series of filters, even though it's not going through the engine, it just goes like that. So yeah, that's what we've got so far. Pretty cheap, it's about 70 bucks. So anywhere but Australia, it's probably about $15 or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, so this will be a disposable filter, but because it'll be after the Raycor, this unit will, you know, it'll hardly ever need to be swapped out. But the Raycor filter will just have a little disposable element, and that will get swapped out, you know, relatively regularly. I'd say every 300 hours or so of running time, every 300 litres of fuel that goes through it.
Okay, so we've glassed up the last two holes. We couldn't glass them earlier because they were sitting on a support strut. Now it's the grand unveiling. We're going to take off the peel ply and sand them up and fair them.
You grab one and I'll grab the other.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go!
The forest looms over the rooftop slate. And it's cursed with an evergreen fate. There's beauty in the faraway tree.
Free paint. We rescued about 2.5 litres out of the bin, didn't we? So
yeah.
we'll give it a bit of an overcoat. The literature says about 8 hours between coats. So we'll get on some of the free stuff, and we'll put some of the paid stuff on, and then tomorrow we'll hit it again.
What anti-foul are we using?
So this one's Sea Guardian.
Yep.
Isn't it? So our neighbour who plied us with alcohol last night, he's just gone over to Coppercoat, so we had a good conversation about that, and I think our next anti-fouling we'll give it a try.
Yeah.
What do you think, Pascal?
I think so. We're going with the ablative for this one.
We got a good well, nearly 2 years out of this last time, so we'll go with this. But as we talk to more people that have, like, we've had anecdotal evidence and stuff like that it's a good thing, but you know, whatever. But people that are actually trying it and using it, when we can talk to them, you know, that's swaying our opinion of it. So it's pretty good.
Everything is illuminated. And the blood stain of the scarlet red on the killing moon hangs high above, high
So the first layer's on. It's pretty exciting. Get the second layer on hopefully this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. How are you feeling?
I'm a little bit hungover actually.
Yeah. You drank a bit too much beer and vodka last night.
Yeah, I didn't think of it in those terms last night. But I guess I did. Painting anti-bowl in the hot sun wasn't exactly the
Hangover cure.
as much fun as I thought it was going to be actually.
At least the boat looks beautiful.
It does, just like you, baby.
Oh, thanks, Dal. Even when you're hungover, you can still be a sweetie.
It's just a full-time job for me, being charming. So in the evolution of our fuel tank, we've got to this stage. I've reinforced all the corners with glass tape. It's over-engineered to be frank with you. And now I've just got a 1/8 VSP tap to suit the thread of our nipples, or our tails if you like. So I've threaded the holes where these are going to go in. But what I'm going to do is just smear these with a bit of epoxy as well, and then in they go. All right. Again, a little bit of overkill. You might have just been able to drill the holes and put them in there. But look, that is done right, I guess. Those threads, it'll make it really, really strong. And with the epoxy there, it'll be fuel tight, and they'll be in there for good. So we've got an inlet. So this will be coming from the transfer pump. We've got another one, and that's the return from the diesel engine, okay, because the diesel's drawing from the day tank, so the return, once it's gone through the injectors, has to come back. If you didn't know, diesel engines, they don't necessarily consume all the fuel that the fuel pump sends off to them. The fuel goes through the injectors and it acts to clean, lubricate and cool the injectors. So you actually have a bit of a recirculating system of fuel with the diesel engine. So from the pump, from the engine, and also a breather to atmosphere. All right, so you don't get vapor lock and you create a vacuum in your system. Okay, and for the bottom of the tank, I've got, look at that, a shut-off valve. Isn't that a novel addition? Just like that.
So that's going to go in with epoxy. You're just showing how it goes in.
Yeah, that's right. So our present tank doesn't have a shut-off valve, so that's a real problem with a fuel tank. But we are now going to have a shut-off valve, which is really cool. All right, and gee, boatyards are noisy places. Anyway, and the last addition that I'm going to put in is a couple of these 90-degree tails, so I can have a sight glass. All right, so we've got fuel safe, clear hose. It does have this pattern, but you know, you can still see fuel through there. So what we'll do is we'll just put that on the front, but I'll do that just before installation. I have to actually mark where the existing cutout for the sight glass is.
Well, today's the day that you install the injectors.
Yep, so we've got them back. I must say they definitely look nice and clean and serviced. So they've got a new nozzle and a new spring inside. The spring was what failed with these injectors. Well, on one of the injectors, it was like 2/3 of the length of the other one. It completely collapsed. So some sort of inferior product was installed before, was what the mechanical guy said. Probably a non-genuine spring. But now we have all the expensive genuine stuff.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, look what else we got for our money. They sent us a new set of copper washers. I went out and bought a bunch of them.
Is it good to have spares?
It's not bad. Alright, so we've got One of the wonders of the modern age for, I guess, yachties is that you can have thousands and thousands of books electronically. So here we've got our Yanmar parts list for the 2GM20, and that's fantastic because it has these exploded diagrams, has everything numbered, and you can go over here and have a look. And then by looking at these numbers and cross-referencing them, and then looking at the Yanmar part number on there, you can triple check that you've got everything in the right sequence, and that's what I'll be doing because I don't really fancy pulling this engine apart again. And I really want it to start, you know?
Yeah, so we can get out of here.
We can get out of here. Alright, so there we go. Our injectors are back. My hope for the future is renewed. Alright, so we're about to go through the process of bleeding the fuel system. And I've bled it all the way through here. All I need to do now is just crack these inlet nuts here and just turn the engine over. I don't want to turn the engine over without any water in the cooling system because there's a rubber impeller that drives the cooling system, and if you turn that over dry it can damage it. So I've just gone and got the local hose from the slip yard and I've just plumbed it in. There's no pressure building up in the system because any excess can just go back out through the strainer and out into the wide world below us. But as soon as the engine needs water, of course it's right there and it can pull it through. So even though I'm not scared of the engine overheating just by turning it over, I do want to protect my impeller. And so that's the reason I've done this.
It's alive!
What were you just doing there with the bottle?
I was playing with bubbles. Alright, look. We've got a bit of water with a touch of detergent in it, and I was just spraying it around on the head where the injectors go in. And what I was looking for was if it blew any bubbles, that meant that combustion gases were escaping around past the seals, and we would have had a loss of pressure you know, in each cylinder, which means that the engine wouldn't have run very well. As it turns out, they've bedded down just fine. I've got everything nipped up nicely, the O-rings are working. And honestly, I'm ready to get the hell out of here, Pascal.
Yep.
So the engine works.
One more coat of anti-foul.
One more coat of anti-foul. We'll pick up a bunch of stuff and take it to our friends. And then we're free. We're free to go ranging and sailing or something. All right, so we've got another job to do just before we go back in the water, because I just want to mix up one last bit of epoxy while I've got a mixing table, and that's to put this little hole back where I cut a hole in the Dodger so I can lift the engine out. So once again, we're going to rely on our old friend David's advice, the old hot glue gun. Just a couple of nips of that and we'll hold it up in place, and then I'll be able to come back later on, epoxy fill it, and then we'll sand it, fair it and paint it later on at our leisure. But we've got to make that waterproof, because at the moment, well, there's a hole that size that just lets rain straight down here. I think it's really good stuff, you know, like just before it sets, you can just put it just right so it's nice and flush and minimise our work. Once we epoxy over that, it'll be all good. So this stuff's not fairing mix, this is glue mix. So you don't want to have to clean up too much of it. It's pretty wild. Okay, so this will be enough glue to hold this in place. I've forced it down that crack a bit. At the bottom, I've just ran a thin line of the hot glue just to stop the resin sagging through on the underside. So I'll just make sure that this is really prodded down in there, and this will be fairly good repair. Eventually you won't see where it was. Alright, so around here we'll just get a little rag with some vinegar and just get rid of absolutely everything just around there. minimise the work we have to do.
Oh.
I figured we'd fix so many holes in the boat that we may as well have another one. Just balance things out a bit.
What's this for, our new bilge?
Yeah, so that's our bilge discharge. So it's quite good because it's downward facing. It won't dribble.
Yes, because our bilge used to get drained through the cockpit.
Yeah, which isn't too bad. You know, like you can have a look at what's going on, but this will just be, it'll be all right. And it's high enough out of the water that, like last time when I first bought the boat, the bilge out discharge was right on the water line. So any waves were able to actually just slowly backfill into the bilge. So I actually rerouted up through the cockpit, and that way I could always just sort of, as I'm sailing along, pump it and have a look. And I thought that that was going to be a good idea. But in hindsight, you don't need to actually see the discharge. You know, as long as you feel it with the hand pump, you can sort of get an idea of how much water's in the bilge, if there is any. So having it out the back here, I think it'll just make it a bit neater and cleaner.
It's happening!
We'll just pretend that that's going to stay on there.
Forget the sun, forget the stones, and make up your mind. What we waiting for? Be bold and still. Stand up, 'cause even the sun would say it's sink or swim. Calm down, 'cause even the sun.
Backing Mirrool can be tricky due to a habit of rounding into the wind and having no steerage when going astern.
Away the sun, it will string us along. Go now, I will take a while to tell you why you're wrong.
What do you say has happened? Get a ruptured oil line.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weakness in this thing. It's like a line that takes oil up from the base up to the head and distributes it, but it's an external line. It's not any sort of port through the head or anything. So it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's old.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it and I was like, it'll probably be alright. Right, so I've got the camera in behind there to have a bit of a look. Oh yeah. Yeah. Luckily with these phones you can zoom in on the video. Okay, so our little problem pretty much involved this bit of pipe, and looking along it, it's just lost too much weight. Okay, so this is unserviceable. It's got to go. And to that end, I cut this end off. All right, because we've gone off to see the guys at Pertec in Townsville, and they've been super helpful already. But they gave us this hose. We've got one banjo fitting for this end, and it matches this size. Okay, that's perfect. But on the other end, it was a much smaller banjo fitting, so that was going to complicate matters a little bit. So what I've had to do is use the old banjo fitting. Luckily, the metal here is still sound. So we've got our banjo, we've got enough solid, sound metal here that we can use a compression fitting. So if you've never heard of what a compression fitting is, it's a pretty nifty little gadget. So you've got these fittings here, and you can see that they've, I don't know if you can see it that well, but they've got a bit of a conical shape on the inside. Okay, they're not flat, they're actually tapered. So what's going to happen is that those two tapers are going to act on this olive, it's called. That slides over the metal, and when you do up those fittings and they crush this, it actually squeezes down onto this bit of metal here. Alright, so let's put it together. That just goes over there. Put our olive on. Oops, I'll put it the right way around. And what you want to do is you want to make sure this is pushed down into that fitting, okay? And so as we tighten this up, this will push that olive down this metal tube until it meets the other side. And then as we tighten this fitting with our super strength, that's going to squeeze that olive and it's going to compress itself nicely onto this, and we're going to have a pressure fluid proof seal. So now, righty-tighty. Okay, we'll just bring that down, and just like I said, we'll just take care that this stays down, because we want that olive squeezing onto the metal. We don't want it squeezing onto the end. And something about that size would probably want about 30 or 40 newtons. I don't have a torque wrench here, but I sort of know what that feels like. It feels pretty good. That's our stage, all right, and that's what it looks like. So these two, they purely go together just to squeeze that olive onto there, and that is, it's on there. All right, let's have a. It's not much of an example, it's only my breath. It's only like maybe 2 atmospheres. So the next part in my cunning scheme is now just to put that fitting in like that. We didn't go just a straight tail coming down like this, because I was just a bit concerned if I had too much length it would hit the block underneath. So this is going to screw in there, and I'll get a bit of thread tape on there. That's what the guys at Vertec recommended. I'll just do that up like that, and then our hose will go straight onto there. And for these fittings, we've got a hose clamp. For these fittings, they don't require a hose clamp, all right? They're guaranteed to, what was it guaranteed to? There's something like 20 bar or something like that, 25 bar. It was a lot for this little oil line. It might have even been 200.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But what we did with this is just sort of lubricated and stuck it in. That did need tightening up onto there. So with regards to this hose, this metal hasn't been used because it's stronger than this hose. All right, this is good, high temperature and high pressure line, right? But when you're making a stack of engines, it's a lot cheaper to make shaped metal lines that go on, because each one of these is quite uneconomical if you're making, I don't know, 100,000 engines. Whereas you can make these, you can keep a few in spare, and it's relatively inexpensive. But over the service life of this engine, corrosion has got in there and it's lost a lot of weight. They've used quite thin tube, and it's able to snake its way through behind starter motors and everything else like that and be quite low profile. This will be a lot more obvious, but it will still do the job.
Over the sand, I'll take the sun, I'll take the stones and take your hand. What we waiting for? Be bold and still. Stand.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Free Range Sailing. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, because it really helps to get our videos out to other like-minded people on YouTube. As always, if you'd like to keep track with where we are in real time, there are links to our Instagram and Facebook pages in the description of the video. Here you'll also find some links to books that we recommend as a great addition to any yachty's library. To receive a notification each time a new one of our videos is released, do make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell button on our channel page. If you'd like to become a patron or contribute to the cost of producing these videos via PayPal, then we have also provided links in the description of this video. See you next week!